So how the hell are we going to get full disclosure without talking about politics? Without discussing these politicians and their corruption, right? So what if it triggers people? Maybe people need to be triggered. But what I want to discuss in this video is the idea of politics and UFOs being separate.
Look at it now through a negative filter. You can clearly see that there is something there. It is solid, it is not natural, and this is definitely not a drone. No one's piloting this from Earth. It's not a weather balloon, and etc., etc. Today's video is about a UFO that was caught on camera by a professional photographer. Now, there's an interesting backstory to this sighting. You see, a lot of the times when new footage is discovered about the moon having some sort of activity, from ruins to facilities to a parked spacecraft of some kind, a lot of the times it's people that are looking for that type of stuff. But this sighting is a little different. You see, the person that was filming the moon wasn't really looking for UFOs. In fact, he wasn't looking for anything. This next piece of footage that we're going to review here is footage that was originally meant for a short film, but what ended up happening was something that you definitely need to look at.
That was so bad.
I missed it all
That was
of it.
awesome. There's some more.
No.
It started going on to this
Look, it
one.
came on with that shit.
Yeah.
Fucking on those poles.
Holy
bad.
shit, I saw it when
I
you
wonder
were
if someone hit it.
It was
Did
bad.
someone crack into it?
I don't know. I'm gonna look. That's crazy.
The technology that we have nowadays is only going to get better, and if someone with a camera can capture this, then I can confidently say 100% that NASA does in fact know what is up there. They know what's going on, they can see it, and now we can see it, and if they don't want to disclose what's going on, then we will force it out of them.
And by separating them, that's actually a very dangerous thing to our own consciousness, to our own understanding of the world. So let me explain. I'm sure, as you guys know, I am definitely not scared to talk about many different things in these videos and the reporting that I do. I'm not scared to talk about UFOs, extraterrestrials, consciousness, things of that nature. And I also dip my feet into the political realm. I'm not scared to talk about politics. Of course, I follow Q and I report on Q and lots of different political things. So I'm very big picture. I'm very holistic in the way I think and with the way I conduct my work through video and writing. I don't compartmentalize myself. Now, in these different communities, we could call it the political community and the UFO community, I often get people who tell me not to report on or talk about the other side of things. I get people in the political realm that tell me not to talk about UFOs. I get people in the UFO realm that tell me not to talk about politics. And they must not know me very well because you don't tell me what I can and cannot say, right? So let's first start with the UFO folks. I often get told, Jordan, you can talk about UFOs, you can talk about the secret space program, you can talk about free energy and anti-gravity technologies, etc., but don't talk about politics. It's going to make people uncomfortable. It's going to make, those listening to you, those attending this conference, those on this social media platform, whatever it is, it's going to make people upset. So don't talk about politics. But you see, a lot of these UFO folk, a lot of these secret space program researchers, etc., they claim to want disclosure. They claim to want the ending of corruption and the release of these technologies and the ending of the cover-up and etc. But how the hell are we going to get full disclosure by not talking about politics? Isn't that exactly where the corruption is in these political puppets that are overseeing the government cover-up of the UFO phenomenon, of the suppression of the technologies, right?
Well, you may not have heard about this since apparently it's not a big news story somehow, but UFOs turn out to be real. We're not kidding. Recently, the New York Times profiled a secret $22 million Pentagon program that investigated unidentified flying objects. Doesn't mean they're from outer space, but they're not identified and they're flying and they're objects. The program wasn't bogus. Investigators found multiple aircraft encounters they could not explain, and they've even been storing metal alloy recovered from the vicinity of these encounters. Leslie Kean wrote about this in the New York Times, that piece in question, and she also wrote a book called UFO Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. She spent years investigating UFOs with the support of former Bill Clinton Chief of Staff, by the way, John Podesta. Leslie Kean joins us tonight. Leslie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So that piece, I think, vindicated a lot of work that you've been doing for an awfully long time and certainly got my attention, and I've stopped making fun of people like you and started paying attention. This seems like a huge story. So I know that it's vast and hard to sum up, but if you could just briskly tell us what we think we know about these sightings.
Well, we do know that there are objects in the sky and sometimes in the water that demonstrate extraordinary capabilities that experts say we don't have on this planet. We don't have the capability of creating the kind of technology or apparent technology that's been observed by high-level officials for many, many decades. The Pentagon program is the most recent discovery, but these things have been studied in other countries and by our country for many years.
So what percentage of these sightings are we sure are not weather phenomena or experimental aircraft?
Well, that's a really good question, because most sightings of UFOs that just people report are identifiable. I mean, we're talking about maybe 5 to 10% of all the sightings that are called in are not explainable. And the ones that are really of interest are the ones reported by military pilots, by commercial pilots, by trained observers, multiple witnesses, ones that are caught on radar, events that have a lot of data to support them and involve very, very credible people.
So I guess what bothers me most about this story is how clearly people who should have been following up and paying attention haven't been. And the case that sticks with me, November 7th, I think, 2006, at Chicago O'Hare Airport, 4:15 in the afternoon, gate C-25, I believe, the pilot of the plane waiting to depart to Charlotte looks up and there is a saucer hovering not that far over the plane. People in the tower see it, other pilots see it, dozens of people see it. It's real, and the FAA refuses to investigate. How could that be?
I know, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking to me. I mean, they refuse to investigate, I think, because they I mean, who knows what the bigger reason probably is that they can't explain these things, and they just they don't want to deal with them. It might frighten people. They don't have enough information. They don't like to say, well, there's something hovering above an airport, but we don't know what it was. So basically, they will come up with other explanations for it, such as that it was a weather phenomenon. That's what the FAA said about O'Hare, which is really an insult to the pilots who witnessed this thing and many other observers who know that it wasn't weather. I mean, it was a metallic-looking disc-shaped object that hovered over as you said, hovered over a terminal, gate C-17 for about 5 minutes, and then it shot straight up through the clouds. This was an incredible aspect of the thing. It was hovering below a cloud bank, and all of a sudden it just shot straight up really fast through the cloud bank and cut a hole in it. So there was like a cookie cutter clean hole in the clouds. You could look up and see the blue on the other side. And as far as anybody knows, as far as I know, and from what I've been told, we don't have machines in the sky that can do things like that.
But I mean, this is not a potato field in Maine in the 1950s at 3 in the morning. This is Chicago O'Hare, one of the busiest airports in the world, in the middle of the day, in front of sober witnesses, including pilots and the control tower. And the FAA says we're not that interested. Like, how could that be?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's very bad. I appreciate how baffled you are, Tucker, because I'm baffled too. And you can imagine that the witnesses involved with this, it's an insult to them. I mean, there are many witnesses, and we're talking about military people, high-level people in the Air Force, the Navy, the other military commercial pilots who were just told that we're not interested in what they saw. And it's very difficult for a lot of them because they're patriotic people.
Well, yeah, I mean, what if it's the Chinese military? I mean, I believe you because you are, I think, the preeminent researcher on this question. But it beggars belief that the U.S. government would just sort of let it.
They know what's going on. They can see it. And now we can see it. And if they don't want to disclose what's going on, then we will force it out of them. And for those of you that have stumbled across this video and are still on the fence about what you're witnessing, look at it now through a negative filter. You can clearly see that there is something there. It is solid, it is not natural, and this is definitely not a drone. No one's piloting this from Earth. It's not a weather balloon, and etc., etc.
But what I want to discuss in this video is the idea of politics and UFOs being separate. So how the hell are we going to get full disclosure without talking about politics? Without discussing these politicians and their corruption, right? So what if it triggers people? Maybe people need to be triggered.
It really is a national tipping point where we see the technology evolving and maturing to the stage where it really can be used.
This supernatural looking glow lighting up the night sky over New York.
It's not supposed to look like that.
That mysterious blue-green haze sparking chaos and confusion across the city.
You look in the sky and it was bright blue.
From brilliant blue light outside to total blackout inside, seen in this video courtesy of EarthCam, sent LaGuardia Airport into darkness.
The entire building goes black and then everyone is crowding around a window and I see this white, blue, really large ball of light.
The New York City sky lit up in a supernatural shade of blue.
Oh my God.
What is that? That looks gnarly.
Look at the sky. Well, that doesn't look good.
Sparking alarms citywide.
Oh my God.
And I heard a giant bang. I thought it was fireworks going off. It looked like it was daytime. You look in the sky and it was bright blue.
But what looked like a scene from an alien invasion movie.
Oh my goodness.
The New York City skyline glowing in an extraterrestrial halo of blue in video courtesy of EarthCam.
People were outside and they were like, oh my God.
It was like daylight.
It looked apocalyptic. It was crazy.
The supernova shades took over the night sky for about 4 minutes. So bright, even seen from New Jersey. Some dubbing the phenomenon Astoria Borealis. Thousands of theories immediately swirling around on social media.
What did you think? It was a zombie apocalypse.
You think nuclear war, maybe? You think North Korea or something? I don't know. You don't really know what's going on.
The Air Force, the Pentagon research arm DARPA, and Lockheed Martin successfully tested a laser turret. The Air Force lab has already built working lasers that can destroy aircraft from the ground, like this laser shootdown of an unmanned plane in 2009, which was a precision breakthrough. At sea, the U.S. Navy already has an operational laser weapon aboard the USS Ponce. But hitting moving targets from a fighter jet flying hundreds of miles an hour is a lot harder. A successful laser weapon can burn through strong materials remarkably fast with virtual silence. Pilots could use it to defend against enemy planes, threats from the ground, and incoming missiles. No need to reload because ammunition is electrical power, not bullets. To be effective, fighter jet lasers will have to be smaller and lighter than ground-based lasers. They'll have to be accurate despite the G-forces, vibrations, and speed that come with air combat. In addition to fighters, the commander of Air Force Special Operations says he wants defensive high-energy lasers aboard huge AC-130J Ghost Rider gunships by 2020. Experts say it'll be the beginning of a new era, as laser weapons are poised to exit science fiction and join missiles, guns, and bombs in the real world.
Advancements to a laser weapon system that was developed by Lockheed Martin have allowed it to successfully stop a vehicle. From more than 1 mile away, the fiber optic laser called the Advanced Test High Energy Asset made contact with a truck and brought it to a complete halt. The laser blasted through the engine manifold and left a clean hole straight through the hood. For this test, the truck was situated on top of a platform and was left with its motor and drivetrain running to mimic a realistic scenario. Lockheed Martin's chief technology officer stated, "We are investing in every component of the system. This test represents the next step to providing lightweight and rugged laser weapon systems for military aircraft, helicopters, ships, and trucks." According to the company, the truck demonstration was the first time a 30-kilowatt single-mode fiber laser weapon system prototype was used in field testing. The system utilizes multiple lasers that are basically combined into one, and Lockheed Martin claims it's more efficient and deadly than a number of single 10-kilowatt lasers that have been created and put to use.
Lasers sound like the stuff of science fiction, right? Sound completely unbelievable. How could our military possibly be using those in future warfare? Guess what? We've just had a recent breakthrough, more great test results that are making lasers a reality. So it's called Athena. Lockheed Martin makes it, and they've been doing a lot of the pioneering in this laser field. Now, what's really exciting about it is that it's so hard to harness that much power and make it compact enough that it's actually going to make practical sense downrange. And they've proven that they can do that. Recently, they tested it against 5 moving drones, so realistic drones that they might go up against with, enemy forces might send against us, for example, or terrorists might send against us. And it successfully shot down all 5 of the drones. This is huge news because it means that in a realistic, practical setting, it's looking very promising. So it could be ready to...
Because the evidence is just overwhelming. Which is interesting because by the year 2023, NASA intends to put people on the moon. But I can't seem to figure out what they're up to. And I'm not talking about how they plan to get to the moon so that they can propel themselves into Mars. I'm talking about the extraterrestrial presence. If they plan to put people on the moon in 4 years, then how are they going to manage to hide this stuff from everyone? What's going to happen? That's what I can't figure out. You see, a lot of things are changing. Things like the announcement of a Space Force. That's an entire military branch that we will be having. But why now? Everything seems to be synchronizing a little too well. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just that the chances of a Space Force happening, along with NASA's plans to get to the moon, to get to Mars, and SpaceX pushing hard to get those manned missions, it just seems like it's too much of a coincidence. I'm going to read you a quote from an article that appeared in Space News magazine, where the U.S. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson was asked a couple of questions, one in particular that caught my eye. The link to that will be in the description below. So she was asked, "How are you preparing the Air Force to tackle space security challenges. And this is her answer. We are being threatened in ways we never were before. So we're facing this forthrightly. We are developing strategies and concepts and implementing them. We are not just putting programs in place, we are accelerating them significantly. The Air Force Space Command last year conducted a series of war games and simulations that looked at the threats we might face in 2025 or 2030 and how we might counter those threats. End quote. If that doesn't sound an alarm in your head, well, it should, because we're either looking at a controlled form of disclosure or we ourselves are going to bring it out. But one way or another, it will happen. And I think that they know that they can't stop it. This is indeed an exciting time to be alive. We are living in the age of information, so things are going to happen quick. The only downside that I see to this is that the general public might not have the choice to make when it comes to answering the question of whether or not these extraterrestrial visitors are friendly or not. And that's very important for the public to decide, because that's going to dictate how we interact with a being that doesn't even look like us, or maybe does. But we need to be the ones to be in charge of deciding whether or not we are meeting a friend or a foe. Which brings us to today's question of the video. Do you think that we are going to have open contact between 2020 and 2030? Let me know what you have to say. As for me, I do think that not only are we going to have open contact within our lifetime, but I think that it will happen sometime between 2020 and 2030. Technology is advancing exponentially, and that's where all the signs are pointing towards to. Disclosure, open contact within the years of 2020 and 2030. That's what I think is going to happen. Let me know what you think. Pineal Ascension, signing off.
Field quite soon. So if we take a look now at what the Athena did to a truck. So we're looking at a truck engine, and the Athena within seconds was able to beam right in there, heat the whole thing up, and burn through the engine of this vehicle. So if you can imagine if you were in that vehicle, all of a sudden this hole would start appearing in your engine and the whole thing would just disappear. That's what these lasers do. Now there's some other key advantages that we should mention. Let me give you 3 of them. 1, unlimited ammo. As long as we have power, we have an unlimited magazine. And downrange, of course, having unlimited ammo can be a huge advantage. 2nd, it's silent. You don't give the enemy any advance warning that it's coming. And then the 3rd one I wanted to touch on is that it travels at the speed of light. So not only are we delivering powerful, decisive effects, lethality, we're also doing it so rapidly they don't know what hit them. So if you could circle back to that example of being in the car again, that would happen so instantaneously, within seconds, you truly would have no idea what was happening. It would just suddenly start disintegrating, right? So what can we use these against? So we talked about the vehicle a bit. We talked about how Athena has just proven itself against drones. But in the real world application, our forces could use it against the drones. We could use it against aircraft. We could use it against vehicles on the ground, like we mentioned. We could also use it against fast attack boats. And in fact, Athena's sibling, Adam, a couple years ago proved that it could eliminate these fast attack boats. So if you imagine boats start trying to swarm one of our ships, not a problem for this laser. Burns right through the hull. As you can see right there, it's burning right through the hull. I'm incredibly excited about this news, this great news about the successful testing of Athena, because it means that we'll be putting these powerful weapons soon. We could put them in the hands of our warfighters and give them even more powerful weaponry to keep themselves safe and also to deliver the effects that we need.
That's crazy.
Can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness, it is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
In the normal order of things, when you invest in research and development and begin a developmental project, you don't have any intention or expectations that one would use it. On the other hand, the real world intervenes from time to time, and you reach in there and take something out that is still in a developmental stage, and you might use it.
Because they're in their freaking zombified sleep, and they need to, oh man, maybe they need to start researching what's uncomfortable to them, right? That's sort of the theme here. Just because something's uncomfortable to you doesn't mean you shy away from it. Compartmentalizing ourselves, compartmentalizing our thinking is exactly what the deep state wants, because then we stick into our little communities and then we don't connect the dots, we don't share information with each other, and that's how they can continue with their cover-up, continue with perpetuating their corruption and keeping all this stuff secret, not only their political stuff, but the UFOs and technologies, right?